a very warm welcome.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Get the crowd going. So, well, thanks for coming along tonight. What's going to happen is I'm going to ask Eddie a few questions, then I'm sure lots of you who are probably a little bit more qualified in rugby than I am, hopefully have some questions to put forward too. So you've in your career after playing, you've managed a whole host of different teams. And I was wondering, coming into a new team, what is it that you do to, foster that team dynamic and really effectively lead a new group of people?
Well, the first thing you do is work out the fights you can win and work out the fights you can't win. Because whenever you go into a team, and I imagine it's like any situation, particularly if the team hasn't been performing, there are problems in the team. And you go in, you try to work out where the problems are, work out which ones you can fix, which ones you can't fix, and then put a plan in place and try to fix it. And one of the things that's been quite interesting for me is being an Australian and having coached in different countries is trying to understand culturally what's important for some teams and what's important for other teams. Like, with the Japanese hate conflict. They really hate conflict. We've got Yusuke and his wife sitting there. I bet you they don't fight much. I bet you they've got a fantastic marriage. So if you want to have a good marriage, study their marriage. And so, Australians are quite direct. We like to say what we think and tell people what we think. And I had to change that considerably in Japan because it just wasn't going to work. So I had to find ways, because conflict, I think, in any organisation is important because you get creativity from it. I had to find different ways of generating the right sort of conflict. And English are a bit the same. I find English to be the most polite people in the world. They don't like to have conversations that make people uncomfortable. One of the things I really hate in England sport is when you say, if this guy here is not doing his job, sorry, what's your name again? Brian.
The Brian's spelt differently. It's B-R-Y and then it's B-R-I.
American way of saying it. Brian. If Brian's not doing his job, then the English like to say, I've got to call him out. And by immediately saying call him out, it puts a negative connotation to it. Whereas in fact, if Brian's not doing his job, then he's affecting the chances of our team to play well. So it's really important that we have that professional relationship, that we have that conversation. It's not about his feeling, it's not about my feeling, it's about the job that he's going to do for the team, and if he's not doing it, how he's got to do it better. So, that's been one of the most interesting things.
Right, great. And in terms of your leadership style, is there anyone who's particularly influenced you or you've drawn upon? We had a football manager a few weeks ago and I sat up and he goes, I was really inspired by Napoleon. I've read a lot about Napoleon and he's, made me the manager I am today. Is there that sort of figure for you?
No. He was obviously a brighter bloke than me. No, one of the things I enjoy watching how leaders operate. I enjoy watching how people communicate. And for me in England, one of the things you learn most from is the football managers because they're under intense pressure to win and the way they interact with the media, the way they talk about their teams after the game, it gives you there's some very good leadership and some very poor leadership.
Do you feel that when you're managing and coaching, you are too far under the media spotlight? Do you feel today it's become too intense, the level of scrutiny that you and your players are, subjected to in the run-up to a big tournament?
Well, I don't think it's too much. I think, when you go into coaching, you know that if you lose games, the media's going to come at you. I always have the analogy, it's like when you have a press conference, you walk into those old Wild Western movies. You guys are probably too young. The old Wild Western movies, there'd be a new cowboy come into town and they'd all be standing with their guns ready as they walk into the bar to shoot them. And that's what it's like going to a media conference. They're ready to shoot you. They're just waiting for you to stuff up.
Fair enough. So you don't feel any challenges in kind of taking the players offline and taking them away from anything else when you're out on training camps and just really be able to focus, work on the game and work on the team?
Well, the players, you know, they're young people. They love their Instagram, love their Facebook. Yeah, we've got James Haskell. He must spend half his life on Instagram. You know, he's got a pretty good body, so I suppose it's fair enough. If I had a body like that, maybe I'd go on Instagram. But yeah, it's just, you know, for rugby players these days, it's getting the right focus, and we don't tell them not to do social media. We ask them to do things that aren't going to be a distraction for the team, and generally speaking, they're pretty good.
Okay, cool. Recently, you defended some of your selections of two New Zealand-born players going on a training camp against critics who are saying, you know, you've been too quick foreign-born players. You came back with lots of other people being out of action. Do you think there's an issue with developing more grassroots talent in England in the rugby game?
Well, it's not my problem. Yeah, my problem's to coach the national team. If England aren't producing more good English players, then it's the development area's problem. So, you know, we're in a position, my job's to make the national team win. If the national team wins, the game in England's healthy. You know, that's the reality. If it's healthy, we get sponsorship, we get media attention, and that allows more money to be put into development. And how it's spent is not up for me to say, you know. And the reality is, it doesn't matter what country you go to, you want to pick the best players because you want to win. And whether they've come through because their great-grandfather was English or because they've done residency here, it's of no consequence to me.
Do you think you're looking at this kind of desire to win, so you're here to lead the team to victory. Over your career, has your desire to win kind of increased, or do you think you know, you've been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and it's just another job now?
Well, if it was like that, I wouldn't be doing it. Yeah, because sometimes I know I drive in a car going to the game. I think, shit, there must be a better way of earning a living than this. You know, because your stomach's churning, you're worried about a certain play, you're worried about things. But at the end of the day, that's excitement. And, you know, I must admit, when I'm not coaching now, because I know, you know, I've only got a certain amount of time left, I'm 57 now, that every opportunity I get to coach is fantastic. And yeah, to me, being an old school teacher, I just love being involved with young people and trying to make them better. And if you play good rugby and you win, it's even better.
Yeah. Obviously, you're happy and the England team's doing great at the moment. Do you see yourself going back to, you know, working with younger people in a school setting or working in an academy further down the line? Or is there another professional challenge you'd really want to take on?
Well, I want to coach England football. I reckon that'd be the greatest job in the world. I'm only joking. No, but I really do. I reckon it'd be fantastic. Just give me 6 months to sort them out. Or I'd love to be a director of sport at a big private school. You know, you walk around Tuesday and Thursday games afternoon, you walk around, you watch the rugby games, you watch the cricket games. That's paradise.
Yeah, it's a good life. It's a good life. Great. Well, we're going to take a few questions from the audience now, and I think I'll chip in a few as well as we go on. If you would like to offer Eddie a question, please raise your hand. And if you're selected, wait for the microphone to reach you before asking your question. Please keep them brief so we can get through as many different audience contributions as possible. Yeah, okay, at the back there.
So England have played Australia a number of times in the last 12 months. And you've mentioned already a little bit about coaching different cultures and different countries. I'd be really interested to hear about your experiences as to whether there's any conflict at all from your professional commitment as England coach and sort of your feelings as an Australian playing against your home nation.
Well, I think, yeah, there's two different things. Firstly, there's your nationality. I'm Australian, I love Australia, but I'm a professional coach, so I love the players I coach. So I don't see any conflict at all. So if I was coaching Oxford Uni, I'd love Oxford Uni. If Oxford Uni was playing against Sydney Uni and I was coaching Oxford Uni, I'd love Oxford Uni. And I went to Sydney Uni, and as you guys know, university life's the best time of your life. Enjoy it. Enjoy every minute of it, because it doesn't get any better than university life. Like, I had 4 years at Sydney University and had a ball. And so it's about, you know, I'm a professional coach, so the players I coach, I love. I want to give them everything I've got, and I want them to win. So I don't see that as being a conflict. Anyway, when we played Australia in the first test, any resemblance of a conflict was destroyed by this woman. So I walked up to the grandstand, sat in the box, and there was this woman there, immaculately dressed. You know, she had Yves Saint Laurent shoes on, everything, you know, nice scarf. And then she turns around after the national anthem and starts going like this to me and saying an assortment of words. I thought, I'm not in love with Australia anymore.
Great. Do we have another question? Yeah, let's go to the other hand at the back there.
Hi. I was just thinking that, did you ever think that back in 2003, after the World Cup final, you could ever be coaching on the other side of the match?
Well, the only thing I know, if Johnny Wilkinson didn't kick that field goal, I'd be Sir Eddie Jones, and Clive Woodward would still be working. No, never thought it. You know, we had quite an intense rivalry over that period. It was, you know, and Clive and I used to have great fun in the media going at each other. We used to love it, enjoy it. But, you know, it's funny how things turn. You know, even after the World Cup in 2015, I'd signed a contract to stay in Japan till 2019. But I made a decision I wanted to do something different. So I went down, because I wanted to coach in South Africa. So I was in Cape Town, I was really enjoying it. And then I get a phone call from the RFU, so it came right out of the blue. But sometimes the bus only comes past your bus stop once, so you've got to get on it. And, you know, to coach England's a fantastic and a humbling experience. And, you know, I'm so honoured to be doing it now.
What do you count as your biggest achievements, having taken over the team to this date?
Well, ahead.
Okay. No, but in terms of how you develop the team, is there something you'd point to in the way the team works, the dynamic, the morale? Obviously, you came in at a challenging time and you had to turn the shop around.
Well, yeah, I think it's about the players taking more responsibility. What I'm pleased with is that the players take more responsibility now, because my job as a coach is to actually make myself redundant. Because the best teams in the world, and you'll know it in anything you do in life, that when the people who are involved in the team run the team is much more powerful, because they're the ones making the decisions. And England were a team that were dependent on their coach, and now, to a large degree, I'm not redundant yet, but by 2019, that's my hope, that the team just goes out there and does it. You know, they go on the field, there's a problem, they solve the problem. They don't have to ask for a solution. And that's what you want. You want a self-organising team, a team that's self-reliant, that makes decisions by themselves, that just gets on with the job. So we do things now to equip them like that. Like, for instance, we send them down the gym and say there's a weight session on, and we don't send the coaches down there. And we see what the players do, whether the players get on with the job by themselves or not. And you see the guys who are the leaders and guys who aren't the leaders. We've done that with sessions on the field. We've done it with team meetings. And the progression of the players to be able to organise themselves has been really powerful. Yeah, and it's one of the things that I've found, that, you know, people say things about young people now that they're this and they're that. But I think, like anything, they're a product of their environment. And if you can create the right environment, you get the right sort of people. And that's been probably the most pleasing thing for the English side for me.
Great. Okay, do we have another question? Yeah, let's go right up the front here. Yeah.
It's not that bad, is it?
Hi, Eddie. I wanted to ask, throughout your coaching career, would you be able to point to one player or a couple of players who have made the most lasting impression on you as a coach?
Yeah, definitely. So I think he went here, Joe Roff. Absolute lunatic. I don't know how he studied at Oxford University. But most brilliant player, and the player that probably was most against what I like in a player, but he was just an absolute match winner and a beautiful guy. Like, intellectually bright, but lazy. Absolutely lazy. But a real match winner, could run lines like any player I've seen. And, I'm still good friends with him today. Really good player. George Smith, still playing at 36. Absolute freak of a player. And the two boys in England now, Owen Farrell and Billy Vunipola, they're going to be greats of the game.
Great. Okay, over there.
Hi there. Yeah, obviously there are some exceptions, but I was wondering whether you think that the kind of importance of skill in the modern game is a little bit less, and whether it's more now about like mentality, physique, and being able to just run into a brick wall week in, week out.
Well, you definitely need to do some training. Look, some blokes choose to spend more time at the bar and sometimes spend more time at the gym. Maybe you're going to go to the gym a bit more. No, look, the game of rugby, it's a balance. It's a balance between skill and the physicality. I think in the Northern Hemisphere, they've allowed physicality to become too important. There's a brilliant young player, I won't mention his name. He's signed for one of the clubs and he's got all the skill. And he's gone to his club and they've told him to put 7 Ks on. Like, it is just ridiculous. Because what they should be saying is get more skillful. Because the easy part is the physical part. The hard part is skill. Skill's so hard. To improve your catch pass skill, to improve your decision making's hard. And you've got to spend more time on those areas. And the gym part's the easy part. Like, it's easy to get fit, it's easy to get stronger. New Zealand have got a beautiful balance between athleticism and skill, and that's why they're the best team in the world. And we're trying to address that now with our England players. And our players now are much more diligent in their skill training, which is good. I bet you're a good player though.
Just on the same row there as well.
Yeah, on the back of those last comments and moving from coaching to playing, if you could be gifted to play at international level, what era would you choose to play in and for what country?
Well, I play now for England because I'll be coached by me. Well, I think the game's fantastic now. I think it's unbelievably good. I think the skill of the players is going to improve immeasurably over the last period of time. Because if you take that as the physical part, it's probably up there now. The improvements in the physical part now are absolutely marginal. How much bigger and how much faster players can get, probably minimal. Whereas the skills like that, there's still so much more to go. So I think the game's going to evolve. I think the 2015 World Cup was unbelievable rugby. If you looked at the quarterfinals onwards, they were fantastic games of rugby, really good spectacles, great variety in the way the game will be played, and I think 2019 will be better. So now, definitely now.
Great. Let's go to the hand over there at the corner. Maybe at me.
Hi. So I'm wondering, when your teams are facing adversity and have come off of a big loss or are facing some big obstacles, how do you get them to rally together and come back for the big victory? What is the biggest challenge that you face as a coach motivating your team to come back and kick some butt?
I love that question. No, it's about understanding very quickly what you did wrong, identifying the areas you can fix. Again, some of the areas you won't be able to fix quickly. So working out a plan very quickly, getting the players to understand if they fix these areas, then they'll improve quickly in the next game, and then making sure you practice that. And then looking after each player individually. Some players will need to be spoken to quickly, and some players will need to be left by themselves. So it's working out for each player what they need to get back. Then you've got the group of getting the plan right and making sure they believe in it. I like to deal, if we've lost a game, straight after the game, I very rarely will say anything to the team, other than maybe it's not our day today, but next week will be our day. But then quickly from the next day onwards, start thinking about what we're going to do to change what happened the previous week. So being very positive, but at the same time working out the areas you need to improve in. And then you can kick some butt.
How easy is it to be self-critical though? I mean, this is a team, you know, that you've worked with, you've coached, these are individual players you've got to know. How easy is it to step back and really look at what went wrong and what you could do better?
No, quite easy. Quite easy, yeah. No, that's not hard, because when you lose, you always feel terrible. Like I still feel terrible after the Ireland game, I can tell you. I only started feeling better. We started camp on Tuesday. I've been carrying that loss around. And, you know, that's the reason I still coach now, because it means a lot to me. So you want to feel the emotion of that loss, but at the same time be able to translate that into a positive plan going forward. And I think that's like any part of business, isn't it?
Cool, great. Yeah, hand over here.
Hi, you were talking about the importance of players being able to identify problems and then make decisions compared to those problems on the pitch without you getting involved. Can you tell us exactly what went wrong during the first half of the Italy game this year?
I knew someone was going to ask that question, so I've got some notes here. No, look, they did something very clever, but not in the spirit of the game. I remember I was coaching Japan. We were playing the All Blacks in 2013. So Japan's last game against the All Blacks had been 145-13. So their average losing score against a Tier 1 country, Japan, was 85-0. So we toyed with the idea of destroying the game. And legally you can destroy the game like Italy did. And you can stuff the game up, you know, basically stuff it right up. But then how can I ever say to Japan you're gonna beat a big side if you're already saying to your team you can't beat that team? You've got to play against the spirit of the game, and Italy did that. Like Italy carried. You see them when they walked out there, they had the white flag because they didn't want to get beaten by 90 points. They wanted to get beaten by 40 points, and that was their target. And our players weren't slow in working out what to do. They were slow in executing. They knew exactly what to do, but they just couldn't execute it. It took them until after half-time to execute it well, and then they did pretty well.
Talking about changes you would make, do you still think the British and Irish Lions has a place in the modern game?
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I think it's absolutely fantastic because, you know, coming from Australia, it's a massive event and it's a whole drama, you know, because it's an old-fashioned tour. And it's the only time now we have old-fashioned tours where a group of countries come in and they start with smaller games and lead to a 3-match test match. Yeah, it's like watching a soap opera, isn't it? You know, there's a start and a finish. It's a short version of Neighbours. Yeah, and it's real, and it separates it from the rest of the world because everything else is quick. You know, it's all like one-day cricket. You play 2 tests here, you play 2 tests there. Whereas the Lions, and it means something, and you can see in this country and in the other countries. But the fact is that it means something to the players here. You know, and if you're part of a Lions side that beats New Zealand, that puts you in a bracket that separates you from other players. And I think that bit of history and that bit of tradition. And rugby's a bit like that. You know, the great thing about rugby is that it's still got values that are different from other games. You know, again, you look at South Africa and Japan in the World Cup in 2015. So Japan beat South Africa. And I remember walking down the staircase down to the ground. And the South African supporters are usually not great losers. But they were actually happy for the Japanese supporters. And they went down to Brighton train station and the South African supporters clapped the Japan supporters on the train. Now, there's no other sports that happens. You know, so they're the great values we've got in our game and they're real values. You know, it's like, you know, if you play rugby, you can go anywhere in the world and a rugby club will look after you. That's the reality of it. You go in the club and you say, I play rugby. Doesn't matter what shape, what size you are. You know, little bloke over there needs to train. He walks to the club. And they still say, we'll give him a game, we'll look after him. What's your name, mate? Mark. Mark. I'm going to get you gym membership. There's a good gym here, Pure Gym. We're used to we're here with the England side. And they'll look after you, and I think the Lions is part of that. Yeah, it's one of those sort of mystic things about the game that we've got to keep in it.
Great. Okay. Yeah, hand over there.
Leading on from a Lions question, are there any players in the current Lions setup that you think could genuinely get in the All Blacks team?
Yeah, I think Owen Farrell could. I think Billy could, if he doesn't eat too much. And maybe George North at his best. Yeah, definitely, because George North's got a physical advantage. He's a bit of a freak. Yeah, definitely.
Great. Another volunteer. Yeah, front row over here.
Keeping with the Lions theme, do you think there are any, what do you think on the selection of players, and there are some quite noticeable absentees from the list that play for England, for example, our captain. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you pick 41 players. If you can't get in 41 players, it's pretty tough. Like, I think Dylan's a great player and a great captain. Is he better than Ken Owens? You know, it's probably it's flip your coin and see whether it's heads or tails. The Lions coach is Welsh, so he's flipped it. It's come out tails for Ken Owens. It's one of those decisions. Joe Launchbury and Henderson, same sort of thing. You know, both very good players, but he's probably going for Henderson because it fits his mix better. So, yeah, there's definitely some of our boys that are a little bit hard done by, but, you know, it's a 50-50 call. And I think, you know, by and large, he's done a pretty good job, Warren. By and large.
Yeah, okay, let's go to the very back corner over there. Milo, yeah, over there.
Eddie, so much in the media we see players hitting the headlines for all the wrong reasons. So, you know, late nights and drugs and stuff like that. As a coach, how do you manage that and what are the reasons for it?
I don't know what newspaper you're reading, mate. Hey? Stop reading The Sun and the Daily Mirror and start reading The Times and The Guardian, mate. Well, I thought you blokes are supposed to be educated, hey? Well, I think rugby players now generally are pretty well behaved. And you know, I was saying before when we were upstairs talking to a smaller group that our players hardly drink now. You know, they're not big drinkers. They'll have a drink after Six Nations. They're very professional. Yeah, you'll always have one or two that are silly, and that's like, you know, in this room. You look around. If you have a reunion in 30 years' time, there's going to be someone here that's overindulged in drugs, someone that's overindulged in alcohol. But I think that the rate in rugby, so just look around and see who it's going to be. Mark, you get to the gym, mate. You'll be all right. I think players are pretty well behaved. And you know, one of the things I've found with the English players seriously is that they're quite well educated. You know, they've got very good manners and they're reasonably well educated and their behaviour is pretty good. You know, probably our roughest guy is Dylan, you know, because he's a butcher from Rotorua. But even he doesn't drink much. So maybe, as I said, you're reading the wrong newspapers.
Great. Okay, yeah, behind the table here.
So, I read the Japanese magazine. You talk about the courage to be hated. Why is it important for the leaders?
Do you recognise that magazine?
Yeah. Well, I didn't say you had to have courage to be hated. That was a Japanese interpretation. I just said, yeah, and I think it is, and it's going to if you want to be successful, you've got to be yourself. You've got to have certain values. You've got to have certain, and out of those values comes the way you behave. And, you know, I just try to be myself. And if people don't like me, that's not my concern. You know, I just get on with it. You know, I try to be respectful as I can. I want people to work hard and I want people to be committed. And if people don't like that, then that's their problem, not my problem. You know, and I think from the Japanese point of view, you know, Japan's a country where people like to be liked. You know, so that's why it's a good headline. Like, it's a fantastic headline. It's like out of that Daily Mirror and The Sun. You know, I thought Number was a better magazine than that. Maybe it's not.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Yeah, let's go. Over there.
So England has one of the smallest backlines. If I got my facts straight, it's had in a while. I was wondering how you deal with like bigger backlines like you were talking about.
Well, you know, if we can find some bigger players, we will, and we're taking some bigger wingers away on tour to have a look at them. But yeah, again, using the Japan example, if you can't be big, then you've got to be quicker and you've got to be more skillful and you've got to be smarter. So we're training those traits as well as trying to find some bigger players. Because we played against Australia, we gave each player in the back line 8 Ks, which is a massive disadvantage. So we need to find some bigger guys, but at the same time, we're not using that as an excuse. We've got to become smarter, quicker, and more skillful.
Great. Okay. Let's go to this side. Seems to have given up. Okay. Yeah, over there.
So, looking forward to the Barbars game in about a week's time. What is it you're hoping to get out of that match with the new group of players you've got?
Firstly, a win. That's very important. Because you know what happens if we don't win. Then I get all the media pressure, it all comes on, Joanna's in trouble at the RFU, it's all on. No, but then from that we'll experiment with our game versus Argentina. So we'll use it to play aspects of the game we want to play against Argentina. And then thirdly, it'd be fantastic if 1 or 2 players that haven't been playing test match rugby showed me they can play test match rugby. So we get those 3 results, I'll be happy.
Great. We've got time for a few more questions. Yeah, over there, just in front of the bust.
Hi. What do you think that other sports can learn from rugby, and what do you think rugby can learn from other sports?
Well, I think you're always learning from each other. You know, I think there's a constant interchange of ideas. You know, rugby does something well in the sports science, or does something well in the way we train, and then people come and watch, and then they pass that back to their sport. They make it better. And so, you know, bits and pieces keep on going. Like I've been over the last period of time, I've been to women's hockey, Tour de France, Chelsea, Arsenal, Southampton, all of those teams. And from each of those various sports, I've picked up little things that I've brought back to the England side, customised it, and made it part of ours. So there's a constant interchange between the sports, and I think, yeah, the thing as a coach is that you never think you know everything, because you don't. Yeah, I'm like you guys, I'm a student. I'm just keep on studying, I keep learning about the game. There's always people out there that know more than you do, and a lot of people know more than me. So I go out there, seek that information, and I work out how can I make that information right for my team, and then you try to put it in your team and you try to get better. And that's the fun part of it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, over here in the blue shirt.
Yeah, just going on from that last question. Do you ever look at rugby league for any kind of influence, especially with like finishing and the quality of finishing that they have in the NRL, for example? Do you ever look at that and draw inspiration from that and use it in your training sessions or in the way you train your players at all?
Yeah, but it's the most simple game in the world, rugby league. It's truly, you know, they've taken every bit of contest out of the game. So, you know, 30 years ago they had a contest at the scrum. 20 years ago they had a contest at the play the ball. And now all of those, And you used to be able to contest the ball carry, now you can't even contest that. So it's become such a simple game, and because of that, they've become so good at other skills, like their ability to run lines and put options at the line is better than anything we do in rugby. So I'm consistently looking at that, consistently meeting with rugby league sides to learn about that. And, you know, they are so far ahead of us in those areas, it's ridiculous. You know, the gap's this big, and we're always looking to bridge that gap. Are you a rugby league fan?
Not as much as a rugby union.
It's a good game, great game, rugby league, love it. And it's simple, so you don't have to think when you watch it.
Great. Yeah, second row over here.
Hey, so I really like your emphasis on like the spirit of the game. You know when Ireland beat England and we lost the Grand Slam, we lost the world record. Do you think that that was good for the spirit of the game because Ireland won on like St. Paddy's Day?
Well, I think the leprechauns helped them. Look, for us, yeah, you hate losing, but in fact, when you've been winning a lot, it doesn't matter what you do to stop complacency, it's always there. And we were definitely a little bit complacent, and I was the worst of that. I didn't prepare the side well. So was it good for Irish rugby? Yeah, they were so happy. They were so happy. Was it good for us? No. Was it good for the spirit of the game? I'm not sure.
Great, and we've got time for one final question. Let's go to, the second row over there.
Hi, so obviously the men's game has a very well-established professional setup with players being paid. As the women's game moves in that direction, I wondered how you thought that will affect the game, obviously as different countries turn women's rugby professional at different rates, and as that trickles through club rugby as well.
Well, if they're smart in women's rugby, they won't make club rugby professional. Like, you can't have professional club rugby in certain sports. You know, it's killed Australian rugby. You know, my club Randwick, we had unbelievable clubhouse, unbelievable ground, and they went professional. And you just don't get the crowds to be professional, to pay players, and they went bankrupt. So the smart thing for the unions, particularly in women's rugby, which I think, you know, I was saying to someone the other day, watching the women's sevens, I thought the women's sevens at the Olympics, the skill level was higher than the men's. I thought it was some incredible rugby played, and it was a real joy to watch. I think if they're smart, they'll just keep the top level professional and make everyone else amateur and keep it amateur. You know, so those players playing club rugby, you play because you love it, and then if you're good enough, you play for your nation and you get paid for it. Yeah, I think England's paying their players now, the national team players. So if you're good enough, you do get paid. But otherwise, you just keep playing the game for the love of it. Yeah, you've got to remember, everyone started playing sport because they loved it. And you want people just to play the sport because they love it. And then if you're good enough, you should get paid. If you're attracting sponsorship, you're attracting crowds, you're attracting TV gates that allow you to be professional. You know, the last thing I'll be saying to the women's game is push it down to the clubs. Keep it to the national teams, get the clubs to play for the love of it, and make sure you make that club enjoyable. You know, you get good coaches, you get good facilities. You know, because if you've got good coaches and you've got good facilities, you want to go to training and train. And if you train, you're going to get better. If you get really better, you'll play for your national team. Do you play rugby? Okay, good. Well, keep at it, just love it. Love the game. Go to the gym with Mark sometimes. Mark, I love you, mate, don't worry.
I think it's Matt, actually. It's Matt, right? Yeah, it's Matt.
He probably wants to be Mark.
Great. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for tonight. But if I could ask you to remain seated while Eddie leaves the room. But please join me in wishing him best for the rest of the campaign and thanking him very much for coming to speak at the Union tonight.